Welcome back to Fresh Faces, New Ideas. My name is David. If you like the channel and you want to continue to support me, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter at Faces Ideas. So now this is part 3 of the Joe Biden press conference. He just finished up a question talking about Afghanistan and about pulling out when the May 1st deadline, which the Trump administration negotiated with the Taliban, and he talked about how they have to see if they're actually going to reach the agreement that was agreed on, whether they pull out, but they expect to pull out soon. So we're going to go back to the video, and we'll take it from there.
Do you think it's possible that
We will leave. The question is when we leave.
Do you believe, though, it's possible we could have troops there next year?
I can't picture that being the case. Okay, Kristen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Given the conditions that were just laid out at the migrant facilities at the U.S. border, will you commit to allowing journalists to have access to the facilities that are overcrowded moving forward?
I will commit when my plan very shortly is underway to let you have access to not just them, but to other facilities as well.
So this is a bit of a wishy-washy, not a great answer. Yes, they should absolutely have access to it right now. And they should also have access to it as your plan goes. So you can show the difference between, hey, look, we got hit too hard. We weren't super prepared, but now we are prepared. Here's how it looks. So not a great answer so far.
How soon will journalists be able to have access to the facilities? We've obviously been allowed to be inside one, but we haven't seen the facilities in which children are packed together to really give the American people a chance to see that. Will you commit to transparency on this issue?
I will commit to transparency. And as soon as I am in a position to be able to implement what we're doing right now, and one of the reasons I haven't gone down, all my chief folks have gone down, is I don't want to become the issue. I don't want to be, bringing all the Secret Service and everybody with me to get in the way. So this is being set up, and you'll have full access to everything once we get this thing moving.
Okay, and just to be clear, how soon will that be, Mr. President?
I don't know, to be clear.
Look, this is not a good answer. It should be right now, and he should know how fast. Because he said, look, we're getting it. He said earlier in this press conference, we're moving 1,000 kids out. So they should have some idea of what's in the works to be able to allow the press to have access to. So this is not a good answer.
Do you bear responsibility for everything that's happening at the border now? I hear you talking a lot about the past administration. You decided to roll back some of those policies. Did you move too quickly to
roll back what? I'm sorry?
Policies. Did you move too quickly to roll back some of the executive orders of your predecessor?
First of all the policies that are underway were not helping at all. Did not slow up the amount of immigration and as many people coming. And
this is true. Data points overwhelmingly to did not matter how cruel the policies were, they just did not work. And this idea that this border wall would work is absurd because there was no actual border wall. So there's that.
rolling back the policies of separating children from their mothers, I make no apology for that. Rolling back the policies of remain in Mexico, sitting on the edge of the Rio Grande in a muddy circumstance with not enough to eat, I make no apologies for that. I make no apologies for ending programs that did not exist before Trump became president.
He's right. Trump had these specific policies. The child separation was a Trump policy. The remain in Mexico was a Trump policy, and it was a disaster. These were unmitigated disaster policies. They just were, and they didn't change the fact that people were coming anyway. So he just rolled back the cruelty.
That have an incredibly negative impact on the law, international law, as well as on human dignity. And so I make no apologies for that.
To ask you about foreign policy, Mr. President, overnight we learned that North Korea tested 2 ballistic missiles. What, if any, actions will you take, and what is your red line on North Korea?
So this is a big issue with North Korea. To be fair to Trump, he did try something new. Did it work? No, not really. But neither has the things we've been doing now. Now let's be clear. At no point will North Korea ever fire a missile at the United States. It's just not going to happen because they are smart enough to know that they like to live. And if they fire a missile at the United States, they're going to be turned into just a crater. So they're more likely to fire on South Korea. So the real issue here is protecting South Korea and the proliferation of any nuclear weapons that North Korea has.
Let me say that, number one, UN Resolution 1718 was violated by those particular missiles that were tested. Number one. We're consulting with our allies and partners. And
Also, what do you mean by red line? Like, what exactly do you want him to bomb North Korea? Like, where is the red line? What does that mean?
there will be responses if they choose to escalate. We will respond accordingly. But I'm also prepared for some form of diplomacy, but it has to be conditioned upon the end result of denuclearization. So that's what we're doing right now, consulting with our allies.
And this is part of the thing. So under the Trump administration with John Bolton, they most famously wanted to do what the John Bolton called the Libya model. And North Korea, under no circumstances, was going to do the Libya model because immediately after Gaddafi gave up his nuclear weapons, he got overthrown. So that's not going to work. So denuclearization is the goal. I have no idea if it's going to happen. I don't know. I don't have an answer to North Korea.
Just very quick
You only
follow-up.
got another hour now, okay?
Diplomacy, can you define what you mean? And former President Obama warned the incoming President Trump that North Korea was the top foreign policy issue that he was watching. Is that how you assess the crisis in North Korea?
Yes. Okay, hang on a second here. Kristen, Nancy, CBS?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I want to go back to voting rights. And as Yamiche mentioned, Republican legislatures across the country are working to pass bills that would restrict voting, particularly Democrats.
So after this, happened, the Georgia bill passed. I'll go over the Georgia bill later today, but it is very restrictive.
Fear impacting minority voters and young voters, the very people who helped to get you elected in November. Are you worried that if you don't manage to pass voting rights legislation, that your party is going to lose seats and possibly lose control of the House and the Senate in 2022?
This doesn't even matter if they pass voting rights either way. Based on gerrymandering alone, that's the issue that they have to deal with on top of it. The Republicans think that they can create enough seats to take back the House just based on gerrymandering. It doesn't even matter whether they run good candidates or not. Simply by changing the way the map looks, they can take back the House. It's that bad. So that's what they have to focus on, is voting rights and gerrymandering, which gerrymandering is the second most popular part of the H.R. 1, and the most popular part is the anti-corruption part, which under no circumstances is going to pass, but the gerrymandering should. So what the gerrymandering is it says that all Congress, all the different representatives, the areas they represent, are drawn up by a nonpartisan outside group, which, in a sense, makes sense. Why would you not want nonpartisans to pull up the group, unless you wanted to create an unfair advantage for yourself?
What I'm worried about is how un-American this whole initiative is. It's sick. It's sick. Deciding in some states that you cannot bring water to people standing in line, waiting to vote. Deciding that you're going to end voting at 5 o'clock when working people are just getting off work. Deciding that there will be no absentee ballots under the most rigid circumstances. It's all designed, and I'm going to spend my time doing three things. One, trying to figure out how to pass the legislation passed by the House.
Get rid of the filibuster.
number one. Number two, educating the American public. The Republican voters I know find this despicable. Republican voters.
It varies. It depends on how it's phrased. If you phrase it as, you know, the Republicans do, as we're protecting security by increasing by elections, then they'll be in support of that. But if you actually point out to the fact that voting fraud doesn't exist and things like that, it's different.
The folks out outside this White House. I'm not talking about the elected officials. I'm talking about voters. Voters. And so I'm convinced that we'll be able to stop this because it is the most pernicious thing. This makes Jim Crow look like Jim Eagle. I mean, this is gigantic what they're trying to do. And it cannot be sustained. I'll do everything in my power, along with my friends in the House and the Senate, to keep that from becoming the law.
Is there anything else you can do about it besides passing legislation?
The answer is yes, but I'm not going to lay out a strategy in front of the whole world and you now.
And
I don't even know what that means. I don't know. Because I don't know. I mean, maybe he could pass some type of executive order, or, you know, if you make Election Day a holiday, I'm sure that would clear out a lot of the things that they're trying to do anyway. So there's that.
then, on a related note, have you decided whether you are going to run for re-election in 2024? You haven't set up a re-election campaign yet, as your predecessor had by this time.
My predecessor needed to.
Yeah, because the Donald Trump the administration, right as like the day after he got sworn in, he set up an election fund, and he basically used all that money to do nothing with it. They burned up like $1 trillion. It was like ridiculous how much money they spent, and a lot of it went funneled back into his own pockets, especially at the end.
My predecessor. Oh, God, I miss you.
Have you?
No, the answer is yes. My plan is to run for re-election. That's my expectation.
And then on one other note, on bipartisanship, your old friend, Mitch McConnell, says you have only spoken.
So here's the other thing. He said I plan to run for re-election. That's big. Look, I don't know if he's actually going to run for re-election. Maybe he will. But, I mean, he's old now. He's going to be even older then. We'll see.
Once since you took office, and that you have moved far left since taking office. Do you see it the same way he does? Have you rejected bipartisanship?
No,
Keep in mind, Joe Biden during the primary was the most moderate. Well, not the most. He was the centrist candidate. That's what his appeal was. So let's talk about what they call the far left: healthcare, voting rights, free college, helping people. That's what the people who they refer to the socialists, the evil socialists. Well, Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're actually communists. That's what their argument is. Although we are, just on healthcare, the only first world country that does not guarantee healthcare as a right. We pay more than any other country in healthcare costs and get worse results than any other country that has socialized medicine. It is indisputable. So that is considered far left, just bringing us to the rest of the world.
haven't at all. But meeting, when's the last time a president invited the opposite party down at least a half a dozen times to talk about issues, everything from how we work. We're working with a group of 20 members of the Senate right now and House on how we reestablish our ability to make computer chips and how we get ahead of the game, how we can work together. We're working together on a bunch of things. But look, I know Mitch well. Mitch knows me well. I would expect Mitch to say exactly what he said. But this is a matter of making sure that I would like elected Republican support. But what I know I have now is I have electoral support from Republican voters.
He's right. He has a massive approval rating, even among Republican voters. The rescue plan had 75% universal approval. It had over 50% approval from Republicans. So his plans do have a lot of support. Background checks have massive support from both Republicans and Democrats and independents. The pathway to citizenship has massive support among at least Democrats and independents, I believe, for some Republicans. Just healthcare and stuff have massive support. So we'll see here.
Republican voters. agree with what I'm doing. And so unless Mitch says the last thing I did, this last piece of legislation is so far left, well, then he ought to take a look at his party. Over 50% of them must be over that edge as well, because they support what I did. Okay.
See, that's a great line because no Republican voted for the Joe Biden's last bill. Zero. Twice in the House they had to vote for it, and neither time they voted for it. So, look, if your argument is that he's moved to the left so far, and 50% of your voters have moved to the left, maybe you're just listening to the group that's too far to the right.
Where am I here? Let me see. Caitlin?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I have a question for you, but first, I'd like to follow up on a question from Yamiche, and that's on the filibuster.
That counts as a question, but go ahead.
Okay, I'll make it quick. It's a
No,
quick
no, you
question. Regarding the filibuster, at John Lewis's funeral, President Barack Obama said he believed the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Do you agree?
It is, yes, absolutely. If you look at when it was implemented prior to Barack Obama's presidency, almost exclusively to stop civil rights.
Yes.
If not, why not abolish it if it's a relic of the Jim Crow era?
This is the ultimate conundrum that he's stuck in. He's such an institutionalist that he believes that this has to happen because he believes that there's a Republican Party can work with, even though all evidence points to there not being. And this is the quid. If you believe it's an institutional issue, why not get rid of it?
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible. Let's figure out how we can get this done and move in the direction of significantly changing the abuse of even the filibuster rule first. It's been abused from the time it came into being by an extreme way in the last 20 years. Let's deal with the abuse first.
And look, this is the most centrist answer to it. We're going to try to take baby steps to fix it. And then I hope when you realize your baby steps don't work, you're going to just get rid of it. That is the hope.
You're moving closer to eliminating the filibuster. Is that correct?
I answered your question.
You also just made some news by saying that you are going to run for re-election.
I said that is my expectation.
So is that a yes, that you are running for re-election?
Look, I don't know where you guys come from, man. I've never been able to travel. I'm a great respecter of fate. I've never been able to plan 3.5 years ahead for certain.
And if you do run, will Vice President Harris be on your ticket?
I would fully expect that to be the case. She's doing a great job. She's a great partner. She's a great partner.
And do you believe you'll be running against former President Trump?
Oh, come on. I don't even think about it. I have no idea. I have no idea whether there'll be a Republican Party. Do you?
This is a legitimate question because I guess we'll have to see in 22 where they stand about things. Because they're just going to, there's a vast majority of them that just want to go to the Trump party. And we'll see.
I know you don't have to answer my question, but I mean, do you? I mean, look, this is the way I view things. I become a great respecter of fate in my life. I set a goal that's in front of me to get things done for the people I care most about, which are hard-working, decent American people who really having it stuck to them. I want to change the paradigm. We start to reward work, not just wealth. I want to change the paradigm. If you notice, didn't you find it kind of interesting that my Republican friends were worried about that the cost and the taxes that had to be had, if there is any tax to be had as they talk about it, in dealing with the act that we just passed, which puts money in people's pockets, ordinary people? Do you hear them complain when they passed close to $2 trillion Trump tax cut?
This is worth mentioning every single time they complain about the deficit. You could, if you repealed the Trump tax cut, it would pay for this bill. If you actually looked at, and that's not even the worst one, the first COVID bill was the largest upward transfer of wealth in the history of ever. And they weren't complaining about that either. 83%
going to the top 1%? Do you hear them talk about that at all? I love the fact that they found this whole idea of concern about the federal budget. It's kind of amazing. When the federal budget is saving people's lives, they don't think it's such a good idea. When the federal budget is feathering the nest of the wealthiest Americans, 90 of the Fortune 500 companies making billions of dollars not paying a cent in taxes.
And your tax bill, your particular one, which you said will bring it back up to 28%, isn't even enough. So Bernie has a tax plan. I'll probably cover that one tomorrow. That is much better than yours for this. So let's see where you go with that.
Reducing taxes to the point that people who are making, if you're a husband and wife, a school teacher, and a cop, you're paying at a higher rate than the average person making $1 billion a year is.
A dozen Fortune 500 companies paid zero in federal taxes.
Something's wrong. Their newfound concern. I'm concerned. Look, I meant what I said when I ran, and a lot of you still think I'm wrong, and I respect that. I said I'm running for 3 reasons: to restore the soul, dignity, honor, honesty, transparency to the American political system. 2, to rebuild the backbone of this country, the middle class, hardworking people and people struggling to get in the middle class. They built America, and unions built them. The 3rd reason I said I was running was to unite the country. And generically speaking, all of you said, no, you can't do that. Well, I've not been able to unite the Congress, but I've been uniting the country based on the polling data.
He's right. It doesn't matter what the Republicans in Congress say. Their supporters support Biden.
We have to come together. We have to. So from my perspective, it's to me, it's about just, getting out there, putting one foot in front of the other and just trying to make things better for people. Just hard-working people. People get up every morning and just want to figure out how to put food on the table for their kids, be able to have a little bit of breathing room, being able to make sure that they go to bed not staring to the ceiling like my dad did, wondering since he didn't have health insurance, what happens if mom gets sick or he got sick. These are basic things. Basic things. And I'm of the view that the vast majority of people, including registered Republicans by and large, share that same view, that same sense of what is, what's appropriate.
Okay, so we're going to stop it here, and then let's go back to this. So he did say he was thinking about running for 2024, but he also said, look, I don't know. It might happen, it might not. He was talking about a lot about the filibuster. I really do believe that Joe Biden does not want to get rid of it. I think he does think that there will be Republicans who reach out to them. That's why he's willing to start with the talking filibuster. I really just hope that they push for it now. That you do it like right when they come back. You start for SR1, which is HR1, the Voting Rights Act. They fight it, the filibuster. You change it to a talking filibuster. You break that. You realize they're going to do that every single time. You get rid of the filibuster in its entirety. So, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. Please follow me on Twitter @FacesIdeas. I will see you in the next one.